Welcome to Gypsy Jazz Quick Tips, the show in which I give you one tip and answer one question. I'm your host Christian van Hemert, and in today's episode I discuss an approach to soloing on minor string on the violin, and I answer a question about bowing. In episode 3 of Gypsy Jazz Quick Tips, I showed an approach to soloing on the one chord on violin by using different arpeggios as different tonal colors. And I got some questions about how to use this on a song. So I decided to show you this arpeggio approach on minor string. So for every chord in minor string, I chose a very simple basic arpeggio. And there are only 4 chords, so 4 arpeggios. For the A minor chord, an A minor 6 arpeggio. For the D minor chord, a D minor 6 arpeggio. For the E7, a G sharp diminished arpeggio. And for the B flat 6, I chose a very simple basic B flat triad. In the first example, I'm just going to play notes of the arpeggios to a backing track in quarter notes. So with these arpeggios as a basis, I'm going to improvise the chorus and either embellish the arpeggio notes or fill in the gaps with random notes. And the last time I used the term random notes, I got some questions about what I mean by this and if the notes are really random. To me, random just refers to the fact that every note is a possibility and that there are no wrong notes. Of course, I do make choices, and those choices are mostly based on experimenting during practice sessions. So I take an arpeggio and start fiddling around with it, trying different embellishments, different passing tones, and consciously remembering what sounds good, and then use that during the improvisation. Another thing, of course, are convenient fingerings, and the last thing that could influence me is a lick or phrase that I heard someone else play. The important thing is not to intellectualize those notes, but let your ears be the guide to what sounds good to you. And that way you can build your own vocabulary and create your own sound instead of being tied down with fixed phrases and licks which you picked up somewhere else. In that example, I changed arpeggios at the same time the chords changed. But one way to spice things up is to change arpeggios a little early or a little late so that you're not completely in sync with the rhythm guitar. This creates a lot of harmonic interest. So in the next example, you'll hear me subtly either delaying or anticipating chord changes. Of course, in a real-life situation, I wouldn't be using the exact same arpeggios every chorus. Instead, I would vary the arpeggios, add more arpeggios, or even use certain arpeggios to create an outside sound. And these things can get very interesting and also very complicated. Now for the last example, I'm going to play 2 choruses, varying arpeggios, use more arpeggios than I used until now. And you can see the arpeggios I use indicated on the screen. The basic idea behind this improvisation approach is actually very simple. You take an arpeggio and either embellish it or fill in the gaps with random notes. Now to get fluent with it takes a lot of time, just as every other improvisation system. The way to master it is to practice one arpeggio at a time with a backing track and just experiment. Now let's get to a question. Could you explain some of the bow patterns you are using? When I just started out studying jazz on violin, I was also very obsessed with this whole bow thing. And I went out to find different information from different sources. I found books, videos, a lot of people telling me different things about which part of the bow to use. You can bow at the frog, you can bow in the middle, you have to bow in the middle, ghost notes, you have to use opposite bowings of classical music. A lot of different stuff. And then when I saw people play, I saw they all played differently. At one point I even saw one player who played almost entirely with separate bowing, so no slurs. And he sounded great. And that's when I realized that the most important thing about producing a jazzy sound on violin is not the bowings, but it is producing a legato sound. So I always tell my students to produce smooth 8 notes. That means long lines without any gaps between the notes. So I would say to focus on the sound instead of a particular bowing that you think you have to use. Of course, if you hear Grappelli play a great lick with a certain kind of bowing, it never hurts to try to find out which bowing he's using, but I wouldn't make it a rule. Just focus on the sound and make gypsy jazz great again. Alright, that was it for this episode. As always, if you like these videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you have a question for me for a future episode, connect to me either on Twitter, on Facebook, or in the comment section of YouTube. Until next time.